In today's episode, I'm going to take you through a landscape shoot and how I edited the final image. I'll show you how I got from this to this. Landscape shooting and editing coming up. Hi, I'm Terry Vanderheiden, professional photographer, and today I'm going to show you actually some of my thought processes for creating a landscape, as well as some of the editing tricks that I used to get the final image that I had in my mind in the first place. Now, I was up in Grand Teton National Park last month, and there are tons of opportunities up there to shoot images, and especially in the fall with the fall colors. It's really a great place to shoot. This spot that I stopped at was near Cottonwood Creek. The road system in the park is kind of a loop around the most popular areas. There are two ways to travel around the most popular part of the park. And you can go up the east side, which is Highway 191. It's also called 89 or 26. Or you can enter the park on the west side called the Moose Entrance. After you go up the road a couple of miles, you're going to look for a place called Cottonwood Creek. If you get to Cottonwood Creek, then you've gone just a little too far, because right there, if you look to the northwest, you're going to see this meadow. Now, many times there's elk grazing in the meadow or horses, so it really makes it a really nice image. So it was this meadow that I wanted to photograph, and I'd driven by it many times, and I thought, you know what, this really looks really picturesque. So I thought it would look best in the morning light, so I headed up there one morning at dawn. So let's get into Lightroom, and I'm going to show you how I worked this scene to get what I was looking for. So first I want to show you a Google Earth image of this scene. And the way this works, if you can see this here, right here is Cottonwood Creek, and people park all along here. This area here is all a split rail fence, looks out into a meadow into the mountains. So this is the image that I saw. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to get the mountains in the background, and I wanted to get the split rail fence in the foreground, the meadow, and then these dappled yellow trees that are in and out of the hillside. Those were the things that I was most interested in terms of trying to get this all together. So I shot this originally. This one was shot with a 24mm lens. I thought that the mountains were a little bit too far away, so I wanted to kind of compress the mountains to where the split rail fence was. And the way to do that is with a longer lens. This was with a 24mm lens. If you go to a longer, more telephoto lens, you can kind of get a compression feeling to the image where the background seems a lot closer to your foreground. So what I did, and going back to this Google Earth image here, is I really liked that scene. So I was looking this direction. And so what I ended up doing was I walked out in this field, because, you know, if you have a long lens, you have to get back. That's the only problem, right? You got to get back farther. So I was able to get back in a little meadow over here and get back as far as I could and have the ability to shoot back at the mountains and get a more compressed type of an image. So when I looked at it, I was probably at about, I don't know, I think it was around 40mm or so. And that was okay, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. So what I ended up doing is I put on my zoom lens, and I turned the camera to a vertical and shot a panoramic. And I shot it at about 70mm, I think. Let's see, yeah, about 70mm. So here's the images that I ended up using. I took several of these, but these are the final 6 that I used. And what I was going to do is merge these into a panoramic. So these are the images. So the shooting of it was, your camera's vertical, your tripod is level. You have a leveling base on it so that it's totally level. So when you turn your tripod, it's not going all wonky. It's going straight. And I'm shooting those pieces with overlap. And so when I put these into Lightroom, and we do a merge, I'll show you how this works. We select all those images that I like, and I'm going to right click and go up to Photo Merge, and then go to Panorama. So we'll go to Panorama, and it'll come in and it'll grab those images and work with that overlap to align all those images. So this is really a great way. So when you're in a situation where you'd like to get more in this shot, but you want to get that more compressed look like what I have here, then it's a great way to go is make a panoramic. So we're going to go ahead and hit merge, let that merge together. All right, so here's my final merged image. So all those images are put together. We can kind of look at it, and we look at it close, and we can see at 100%, actually worked out pretty good. So, but there's a lot of work that I still need to do on this image. And the first off is we're going to go into develop, and we're going to do a little cropping first. So let's go ahead and crop. And the sky's fine. We'll maybe just crop down just a little bit, and we'll crop up to here. And we don't really need this truck. It's really weird. You're standing there taking a picture and people will just drive up and park right in front of you. But it's a national park. So if you go there early enough, a lot of times you're not going to have issues with people parking close. So we're just going to crop that out. That's probably an easier way to go. If we really wanted to keep that, we'd have to remove it. But for right now, we got a little bit of foreground, and we got our background the way we want it all the way over here. So let's take a look and see what we did. All right, that looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is do a little bit of development. And the first thing that I'm going to want to do is probably just warm up the scene just a little bit. So I always work my way down in the basic panel inside of Lightroom. So we just warm this up a little bit by sliding the temperature slider over a little bit. Sometimes I slide over the tint into magenta a little bit more. Now let's go ahead and bring the shadows up a little bit more. Bring our exposure up just a little bit. And then what I want to do is I want to bring our saturation up so we can get a little more tone in those yellow trees. I think that's going to be important to have a richer tone in those trees. So now we've got some good things going on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mask. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on mask over here, and then I'm going to do a brush. Now on a brush, we have lots of opportunities of what we can do. We can set up however it is we want to do our brush and what parameters we want to do from our brush. But I find it's easier to use a preset. And as you guys know, I have lots of presets that I use. Here's one that I'm going to do for fall leaves. And this will enhance the color. And I'm just going to start brushing along and enhance all those fall colors. Not necessarily the greens. That's not what I'm working with yet. But I'm going to enhance all the yellow tops. Do a little bit over here. As we zoom up, we can take a closer look at how we're doing here. So we're going to hit the Option key and minus some of that out of there because we don't want it in every spot. Some of these little background areas, we don't necessarily need to have that enhanced. So we'll just cut that out by the minus key. See what else we've done. Same thing up here with these trees. We'll use the minus key. Make that brush a little bit smaller. And we'll just minus out those trees. And it's really great when you have this auto mask on, you're able to trek around a little bit and just remove things that maybe you overpainted. And it makes just creating this thing pretty easy, when you're just coming through here. Here's another example here. Don't need that all out of control. And wherever you put that little cross is where the color is what they'll pick up, right? So that color is going to be what they're going to remove. And you can see within just a couple of seconds, you can just click through there and fix all that. So I usually do, my color painting and stuff on a wide swath, and then I can come in and easily remove that kind of stuff. But it's nice to have, a brush that's built to do these things and do them fast, because that's kind of what I'm looking for. Let's undo that. And of course, if you want to know more about my brushes, I've got a video here on how to make your own presets, or if you want to buy my brushes, those are of course available in my digital store. You can go ahead and pick those up, or you can make your own, whatever you feel like. And maybe if you only need 1 or 2 brushes, then make your own. And like I said, I have a video on how to do that. So we can cruise around here, kind of looking tight as to what we're doing. There's another couple of spots here that we'll remove. That color swatch that we put in. And we probably could do that a little more intense. There we go. All right, so now as we look at this, let's pull back. Go back to fit. And we can see what we did here. Now, what I like to do is I like to make sure that I've hit everything that I want, all the tones and stuff that I want. But in this particular case, it's obviously overdone. This is my opinion. So what we've got is we have this slider here. It's really super convenient, right? We have 100% right now, but we can slide this back and remove some of those tones. So what we're going to do is just slide it back just a little bit, get it to something that looks realistic, and then now we're good to go. So let's go ahead and continue on with some of our brushing that we want to do, right? So let's go ahead and hit the letter K, and that'll give us a brand new brush, and we can assign a different brush to it. Let's come on down here and let's go to green pop. So what this does is this of course adds green to really enhances green. So let's come up through here, see what we're doing. Again, we're going to paint through the green, and we're going to increase our green to have a little more depth into it. More contrast. It has obviously more saturation. And let's take a look. Now we'll come back up here and we'll see what we've done. All right, that looks pretty good. Now what we'll do is do what we did before, right? We don't want anything looking too extreme or too cartoony. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide that slider back on the green pop and go ahead and bring that back. All right, so let's add another new brush. We're going to hit the letter K, and this time we're going to try to create a little more contrast. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to slide down, and we're going to TV dodge. Grab that, and now that anything that we paint on is going to be a little lighter. See that? Let's come up here. So, obviously contrast is one of those things where if you want an area to be lighter, you can just dodge that area. And then of course the darker area will kind of feel like it's a little bit darker, but we're actually going to go in and increase some of that too as well. All right, so we like that. Let's go ahead and add a new brush, hit the letter K, and let's change our brush over here. We're going to do, so they come with, the Lightroom comes with some different brushes. So this might be something you can start with. Here's a contrast brush. And so we're just going to be coming in here and painting some of the contrast of those hills in the background, right? The trees that are going up, we want a little bit of contrast. You don't want too much because we want to have, we want to show the depth, right? So when you're looking at something in the distance, you get less detail and you get less defined colors, right? Things that are farther in the distance, that kind of the blue mountain type of thing that you see in the background. That's what we're doing here. We want to create some contrast, but we don't want to go too over the top. So we'll just do a little painting in here. This is all with masks, so it's all editable afterwards, which is really great. We're able to do some of this here. And in fact, when we look at this, let's go ahead and do this. And what's great with editing, right, you have the ability to go back and make changes. So if I come back to this brush, which was our dodge brush, let's go ahead and slide the amount of that dodging back a little bit. There we go. So you can see how this thing is coming together. So I'm starting to like how this looks. This looks pretty good. So there are some things we want to change, but I think we've gone as far as we can go inside of Lightroom. So the next thing we're going to do is go into Photoshop and do a little bit more on this image. If you're enjoying this kind of content, hit the like button. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon to be reminded of my next video. I always read and respond to all the comments in the comment section. So feel free to leave a comment or a question or a suggestion, and I'll get back to you. If you like, you can always contact me directly via email. My address is terry@imagelight.com, and I'll answer your questions via email and also put you on my mailing list to alert you of my next video. Thanks. All right, so here's our image in Photoshop and a couple of distracting things we want to remove if we can. So the very first thing I do when I bring an image into Photoshop is always make a duplicate copy of it. You can just drag it down to the plus, or you can use Command J or Control J on the PC, and that'll make a new layer of whatever you're starting with. Great way to work so you're not doing any kind of destruction to the first and most important layer, which is your beginning shot. Let's go ahead and zoom up a little bit and take a look at some things. So one of the things that we'll see here is we see that we've got some telephone lines, right? And I don't know whether Photoshop's going to be able to do this or not, but they do have a new feature that in the remove section, we'll go to remove tool, and they have this find distractions. So let's look in here and we'll say wires and cables. And let's see how Photoshop does with the wires and cables. It takes a few minutes to do this, but it's really worth it. So let's go ahead and let it do its thing and see if it finds those power cables that are stringing across the forest. All right, let's take a look. It did a pretty good job. As we come in here, we can see that these power lines that were stringing across the forest are no longer there. That's what we want. I don't want to do that manually. That's too much work. All right. So it's looking pretty good. So now what we want to do is we want to do some basic removing. So again, we're going to add a new layer. Just click the little plus sign. We got a nice clean layer. And we want to take this out. So let's go ahead and hit our remove tool. And we'll come down to about there. Let's see how Photoshop does with that. Good. That removed it pretty well. We don't want this orange distracting pole out there. We'll remove that. Same thing with this pole. Let's see if we can get rid of that as well as this one here. See if we can do a remove of that, see what happens. Okay, so far so good. Didn't do anything with that one, so we'll probably have to go in manually and do that. So let's go in here. And we see that pole here. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to use the clone tool. I have a video on how to use the clone tool. You can check it out up here if you like. We just click on the clone stamp tool, and we want to stamp from a area near this. So we're going to hit the Control or the Option key or the Alt key if you're on the PC, and then we'll just drag this up. And that's how I come in and remove little things here that are kind of distracting that I'd like to make changes on. The clone tool allows us to align things pretty well. All right, we've got some signs. We don't really need those signs, so let's go ahead and see if the remove will take care of the signs. These are small, so our resolution isn't going to be a problem, even if this is printed, because these little details are pretty small. If you had a large detail that you're trying to remove, you may want to just use the clone stamp tool, because in some of the AI remove, when you're using generative AI, you're going to lose some definition. It's going to be a little bit lower resolution. So you don't want to do that on large things to begin with. Let's go and see if we can get rid of that little red dot. I don't want anything that's going to distract me from this image, okay? So this sign, take that out as well. Oh, it looked pretty good. All right, here we got this big issue here. We got this big pole. There was nothing I could do about that. There's no spot where I could get that I could not have that pole in shot. So let's see how Lightroom or Photoshop does at removing this. Let's go ahead and make sure we're covered pretty well around it. And let's hit remove and see how it does. That's not bad. I actually did a pretty good job. You can see when we do our remove, when we have everything on a layer, you can see everything that we removed. Let's move on. Here's another little sign. We don't want the sign. Again, these are all personal preferences. Everybody has a choice of what they want to remove, what they want to keep in an image, right? But as we're going through here, these are little things that kind of, bring it back to nature. It's not so much focused on people interaction. I try to keep the minimal things. Obviously the roadway's there. I like the roadway there. I like the split rail fence. Okay, let's zoom back out and see what we got. All right, we're looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to make a combo layer of this up on its own layer, and that is on the Mac, Shift, Option, Command, E. And if you wanted to do that on the PC, it's Shift, Alt, Control, the letter E. That makes that own layer right up here. And so now we've got our own layer up here. We like this. Everything looks great. What's the next thing that I want to do? Well, it's obvious. The sky just doesn't look great. We need to change that sky out. We could use it like this, and that's authentic, but we didn't have a sky to work with that day. So we can go in here, go into Edit, and let's try this. Let's look into Sky Replacement. It's all the way down here in the Edit. Now you have lots of skies to choose from. And so here's a real dramatic sky, which looks great. Might be a little bit too dramatic for this image. And the other thing that happens with sky replacement is you have the ability to put in a sky. And these are all skies that Photoshop has, you can download these from Adobe, and they're all different types of skies. But the problem is we don't really know the resolution of them, right? Sometimes the resolution's small, sometimes it's big. And if you want to print this image, you want that sky to look pretty good. So what I do is when I'm out shooting is I try to shoot skies. So I have skies that are available that I've shot, and I'm not actually taking a sky that was in stock. This is just an actual sky. So the way to do this, when you come in this dialog box, we're in here, we press this little downward arrow. Now what we're going to do is come down here, this little plus sign. So we go to the little plus sign, and this is where we're going to actually look for our skies. So let's come in here, got a folder that we did with skies, and we have some skies. These are actual skies that I took up at Grand Teton on a separate morning, but they are from the same location. So this is dawn, facing dawn. So this is going to be opposite facing of where we're at. But let's go ahead and put that in. And we can see that's what that looks like. We can adjust it, of course, but I'm not sure I really like that. Let's go ahead and pull down a little bit more, see what else we can get. Go in here. Here's another sky with clouds that was shot early in the morning as well. So let's go ahead and this was the same direction. So this was facing northwest when I shot this. So this might fit a little bit better. So let's go ahead and put that in and assign that as our clouds. And let's see where we're at. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I think we can probably tone that down just a little bit by adding a little bit of warmth to it, because we're actually, this is a morning kind of a shot, and we want this to look good. In our scale, we have the ability to change the scale of this, but we don't want to go too far, right? So you want to just make the scale to fit. We're going to output to a new layer. Let's go ahead and click OK. And now we've got a little more of a dramatic sky that we actually shot. It wasn't shot at the same time, but it is actually shot. And you can see here what Photoshop has done. They have all these separations that are all set up in here. You can actually take this image here, this folder that has all of your sky replacement info in it. And then if you wanted to bring the opacity down to lessen that or match it somehow better, you can do that. But we're just going to leave it as is. And there we have our final image. So we did a couple of things here, right? First thing we did is said, let's use a different lens to compress those mountains with our foreground to get a little bit more of a dramatic shot. The second thing we did is we shot it in a panoramic, so we could fit that longer lens in that shot, right? If you want to use a longer lens, and you shoot little slices of it and put it together later. And then you still get the compression, but you don't have to worry about the wide angle where your fence is so far away from your subject. And then of course you go into Lightroom, use brushes to tune it up how you want it. And then you come into Photoshop and finish it up by doing some of the remove things that you want to do and get it to your final way you want it. And then add a sky if you like. So that's how we did it. All right. See you next time.